Good morning, good morning, good morning, wherever you are. Maybe you find this video in the afternoon or the evening, but wherever you are, it's morning for me. I just set up the computer to do the second reading of Charles Eisenstein's amazing book, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. And while I'm setting up, Simon on the bed, here I am. I've not long been up and I was like, I've got to get that second video done today because I want to read that second chapter and I want to let you guys get stuck into the second chapter because it's been a few weeks since the first chapter. The first chapter was called Separation. If you haven't seen that one, then please maybe go back and listen to the first chapter first. So Simon on your bed, I set up and then all of a sudden the sun just rose and just shone on me, which is beautiful. So I thought, man, I'm going to need some sunglasses. So I've got a selection of sunglasses today. I've got some other sunglasses, but they've got no lenses. So I need to wear my sunglasses. It's not to look cool. It's actually so the sun doesn't burn my eyes. All right, welcome wherever you are in the world. So just a little reminder of why we're reading this magnificent book. In a time of social and ecological crises, what can we as individuals do to make the world a better place? This thought-provoking book serves as an empowering antidote to the cynicism, frustration, and paralysis so many of us are feeling, replacing it with a grounding reminder of what's true. We are all connected, and our personal choices bear unsuspected transformational power. By fully embracing and practicing this principle of interconnectedness, we become more effective agents of change and have a stronger positive influence to the world. I love that. And that's just the little bit at the back of the book. So if you don't already know, you can read this book as a gift at Charles's website, which is below this video. And you can read all his books as a gift, and also you can buy it. I bought this one online, and also Charles Eisenstein. If you don't know him, you'll first list. I've also recorded two Simon on the sofa conversations, one on the Hangout and one live with him when he was in London, and the links are also below this video. I like what Mark Boyle said here. I'm going to read this to you on the back of the book. Charles Eisenstein is a cultural investigative journalist, questioning the perpetually unexamined assumptions of both conventional and countercultural thinking. He is a cultural storyteller, a visionary who gives us a glimpse of what the new story of the people may look like, how we might get there, and how close we are to it. I was going to say at it. Mark Boyle is also the author of the Moneyless Manifesto, and he wrote a book. His first book was Living Without Money, or The Moneyless Man. That was it, the Moneyless Man. And the second book was the Moneyless Manifesto. Another great author out there if you don't know him, Mark Boyle. He's friends of Charles Eisenstein as well. So here I am. Why am I reading this book personally? So you guys know that I'm passionate about authentic communication, what I call transparent communication, and how we can empower our own transformation. Because for me, if there's going to be any change in the world, any new communities rising, any new systems in place, anything new, any new story of the people, is that until we have the personal transformation, there's not going to be any collective transformation. And that's happening across the planet now. Individuals, it's been happening for thousands of years. Don't get me wrong. It's not some new trend or new fad. It's not because of the 60s. It's not because everybody's taking psychedelics. This is just a global transformation, a collective transformation where more and more people are realizing that the transformation occurs within. And yes, of course, sages and other intellectuals and philosophers and seers and whatever you want to label these people as, just more human beings like you and me, have woken up to the realization that our thoughts and our actions have a ripple effect on the whole of humanity. So by me reading this book, from a morphogenesis genesis perspective, a morphogenetic perspective, this is rippling out to the universe, and every action and thought and deed and everything that you do is also having that. So what an amazing time to be alive with all this information coming through of how we're interconnected with all beings and the planet, etc., etc. I mean, I'm buzzed up. So without further ado, first of all, I want to say a few thank yous to all of you who listened to the first chapter and your beautiful comments and feedback. You know, some of the things that happened just from you guys listening to the first chapter was amazing. Just having that realization that it's lovely to be read to. It's lovely to have a bedtime story or any time story. And it's also lovely that we come together to read a book, because I haven't read this book since I last read to you, and I've wanted to in the last 2 or so weeks, 3 weeks, and now I get to read the chapter again. So I'm actually, you know, happy that I'm doing this as a reminder to, yeah, let me read this book for you guys out there. And also, one of you, Laura, you said about me, you were looking forward to hearing my book read live as well. And don't worry, that time will come. But in the meantime, let's read another magnificent book. Charles Eisenstein, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. So before we begin, I'd love you to close your eyes, take a moment. I hope wherever you are, you're relaxed and comfortable. Here you go. The sun's just gone down behind a cloud for a moment. So yeah, just relax yourself, take a few nice deep breaths in. And remember that whatever you hear on today, don't worry about remembering things, or yeah, just listen, and what gets transmitted is all that you needed to hear today. And we're going to start with the chimes today, always a musical instrument. Wonderful. So this will be read to you with my morning voice. This chapter is called Breakdown. And underneath the chapter on breakdown is a little quote. And it says, "The kingdom of God is for the broken-hearted." And it says that's by a guy called Fred Rogers. The kingdom of God is for the broken-hearted. It is frightening, this transition between worlds, but it is also alluring. Have you ever gotten addicted to doom and gloom websites, logging on every day to read the latest evidence that collapse is coming soon, feeling almost let down when peak oil didn't start in 2005, or the financial system didn't collapse in 2008? I'm still worried about Y2K myself. Do you look toward the future with a mixture of dread? Yes, but also a kind of positive anticipation. When a big crisis looms, a superstorm or financial crisis, is there a part of you that says, bring it on, hoping it might free us from our collective entrapment in a system that serves no one, not even its elites? It is quite normal to fear what one most desires. We desire to transcend the story of the world that has come to enslave us, that indeed is killing the planet. We fear what the end of that story will bring, the demise of much that is familiar. Fear it or not, it is happening already. Since my childhood in the 1970s, our story of the people has eroded at an accelerating rate. More and more people in the West no longer believe that civilization is fundamentally on the right track. Even those who don't yet question its basic premises in any explicit way seem to have grown weary of it. A layer of cynicism, a hipster self-awareness has muted our earnestness. What was once so real, say a plank in a party platform, today is seen through several levels of meta filters that pass it in terms of image and message. We are like children who have grown out of a story that once enthralled us, aware now that it is only a story. At the same time, a series of new data points has disrupted the story from the outside. The harnessing of fossil fuels, the miracle of chemicals to transform agriculture, the methods of social engineering and political science to create a more rational and just society. Each has fallen far short of its promise and brought unanticipated consequences that, together, threaten civilization. We just cannot believe anymore that the scientists have everything well in hand, nor can we believe that the onward march of reason will bring on social utopia. Today, we cannot ignore the intensifying degradation of the biosphere, the malaise of the economic system, the decline in human health, or the persistence and indeed growth of global poverty and inequality. We once thought economists would fix poverty, political scientists would fix social injustice, chemists and biologists would fix environmental problems. The power of reason would prevail and we would all adopt sane policies. I remember looking at maps of rainforest decline in National Geographic in the early 1980s and feeling both alarm and relief. Relief because at least the scientists and everyone who reads National Geographic are aware of the problem now. So something surely will be done. Nothing was done. Rainforest decline accelerated, along with nearly every other environmental threat that we knew about in 1980. Our story of the people trundled forward under the momentum of centuries. But with each passing decade, the hollowing out of its core, which started perhaps with the industrial scale slaughter of World War I, extended further. When I was a child, our ideological systems and mass media still protected that story. But in the last 30 years, the incursions of reality have punctured its protective shell and eroded its essential infrastructure. We no longer believe our storytellers, our elites. We have lost the vision of the future we once had. Most people have no vision of the future at all. This is new for our society. 50 or 100 years ago, most people agreed on the general outlines of the future. We thought we knew where society was going. Even the Marxists and the capitalists agreed on its basic outlines. A paradise of mechanized leisure and scientifically engineered social harmony, with spirituality either abolished entirely or relegated to a materially inconsequential corner of life that happened mostly on Sundays. Of course, there were dissenters from this vision, but this was the general consensus. Like an animal, when a story nears its end, it goes through death throes, an exaggerated semblance of life. So today we see domination, conquest, violence, and separation take on absurd extremes that hold a mirror up to what was once hidden and diffuse. And here he goes into a few examples. So, villages in Bangladesh where half the people have just one kidney, having sold the other in the black market or organ trade. Usually this is done to pay off debts. Here we see literalized the conversion of life into money that drives our economic system. Number 2. Prisons in China, where prisoners must spend 14 hours a day playing online video games to build up character experience points. The prison officials then sell these characters to teenagers in the West. Here we see in extreme form the disconnect between the physical and virtual worlds, the suffering and exploitation upon which our fantasies are built. And 3. Old people in Japan whose relatives have no time to see them, so instead they receive visits from professional relatives who pretend to be family members. Here is a mirror to the dissolution of the bonds of community and family to be replaced by money. Wow, that's pretty full on, right? I'm sure you'll agree. Of course, all of these pale in comparison to the litany of horrors that punctuates history and continues endemic to this day. The wars, the genocide, the mass rapes, the sweatshops, the mines, the slavery. On close examination, these are no less absurd. It is the height of absurdity that we are still manufacturing hydrogen bombs and depleted uranium munitions at the time when the planet is in such peril that we all must pull together, and soon for civilization to have any hope of standing. The absurdity of war has never escaped the most perceptive among us, but in general we have had narratives that obscure or normalize that absurdity and thus protect the story of the world from disruption. Tell me about it. Denial is strong. Distractions are strong. Occasionally, something happens that is so absurd, so awful, or so manifestly unjust that it penetrates these defenses and causes people to question much of what they'd taken for granted. Such events present a cultural crisis. Typically, though, the dominant mythology soon recovers, incorporating the event back into its own narratives. The Ethiopian famine became about helping those poor black children unfortunate enough to live in a country that still hasn't developed in apostrophes as we have. So I just read that again. The Ethiopian famine became about helping those poor black children unfortunate enough to live in a country that still hasn't developed as we have. The Rwandan genocide became about African savagery and the need for humanitarian intervention. The Nazi Holocaust became about evil taking over and the necessity to stop it. All of these interpretations contribute in various ways to the old story of the people. We are developing, civilization is on the right track, goodness comes through control. None hold up to scrutiny. They obscure in the former two examples. The colonial and economic causes of the famine and genocide, which are still ongoing. In the case of the Holocaust, the explanation of evil obscures the mass participation of ordinary people like you and me. Underneath the narratives of disquiet persists the feeling that something is terribly wrong with the world. The year 2012 ended with a small but potent story, piercing event. The Sandy Hook massacre. By the numbers, it was a small tragedy. Far more and equally innocent children died in US drone strikes that year or by hunger that week than died at Sandy Hook. But Sandy Hook penetrated the defense mechanisms we use to maintain the fiction that the world is basically okay. No narrative could constrain its utter senselessness and quell the realization of a deep and awful wrongness. We couldn't help but map those murdered innocents into the young faces we know and the anguish of their parents onto ourselves. For a moment, I imagine we all felt the exact same thing. We were in touch with the simplicity of love and grief, a truth outside of the story. Following that moment, people hurried to make sense of the event, subsuming it within a narrative about gun control, mental health, or the security of school buildings. Nobody believes deep down that these responses touch the heart of the matter. Sandy Hook is an anomalous data point that unravels the entire narrative. The world no longer makes sense. We struggle to explain what it means, but no explanation suffices. We may go on pretending that normal is still normal, but this is one of the series of end time events that is dismantling our culture's mythology. So I'm going to read that again just for clarity. We may go on pretending that normal is still normal, but this is one of the series of end time events that is dismantling our culture's mythology. Who would have foreseen 2 generations ago, when the story of progress was strong, that the 21st century would be a time of school massacres, of rampant obesity, of growing indebtedness, of passive insecurity, of intensifying concentration of wealth, of unabated world hunger, and of environmental degradation that threatens civilization. The world was supposed to be getting better, no? We were supposed to be becoming wealthier, more enlightened, no? Society was supposed to be advancing. Is heightened security the best we can aspire to? What happened to the visions of society without locks, without poverty, without war? Are these things beyond our technological capacities? Why are the visions of a more beautiful world that seemed so close in the middle 20th century now seem so unreachable that all we can hope for is to survive in an ever more competitive, even more degraded world? Truly, our stories have failed us. Is it too much to ask to live in a world where our human gifts go toward the benefit of all? where our daily activities contribute to the healing of the biosphere and the well-being of other people. Oh, I love that so much. I love that. That is the passion and purpose of my path. Is it too much to ask to live in a world where our human gifts go toward the benefit of all? Wow, I love that. Where our daily activities contribute to the healing of the biosphere and the well-being of other people. Woo! Woo! We need a story of the people, a real one that doesn't feel like a fantasy, in which a more beautiful world is once again possible. Wow, I'm buzzing. I love that line. Where our daily activities contribute to the healing of the biosphere and the well-being of other people. We need a story of the people, a real one that doesn't feel like a fantasy, in which a more beautiful world is once again possible. Various visionary thinkers have offered versions of such a story, but none has yet become a true story of the people. A widely accepted set of agreements and narratives that gives meaning to the world and coordinates human activity towards its fulfillment. We are not quite ready for such a story yet, because of the old one, though in tatters, still has large swathes of its fabric intact. And even when these unravel, we still must traverse naked the space between stories. In the turbulent times ahead of our familiar ways of acting, thinking, and being will no longer make sense. We won't know what is happening, what it all means, and sometimes even what is real. Some people have entered that time already. Whew. I wish I could tell you that I am ready for a new story of the people. But even though I am among its many weavers, I cannot yet fully inhabit the new vestments. As I describe the world that could be, something inside me doubts and rejects, and underneath the doubt is a hurting thing. The breakdown of the old story is kind of a healing process that uncovers the old wounds hidden under its fabric and exposes them to the healing light of awareness. I am sure many people reading this or listening to this have gone through such a time when the cloaking illusions fell away. All the old justifications and rationalizations, all the old stories. Events like Sandy Hook helped to initiate the very same process on a collective level. So also the superstorms, the economic crises, political meltdowns. In one way or another, the obsolescence of our old mythology is laid bare. What is that hurting thing that takes the form of cynicism, despair, or hate? Left unhealed, can we hope that any future we create won't reflect that wound back to us? How many revolutionaries have recreated in their own organizations and countries the very institutions of oppression they sought to overthrow? Only in the story of separation can we insulate outside from inside. As that story breaks down, we see that each necessarily reflects the other. We see the necessity of reuniting the long saundered threads of spirituality and activism. That's a really powerful paragraph. As that story breaks down, that old story that we know so well, we see that each necessarily reflects the other. We see the necessity of reuniting the long saundered threads of spirituality and activism. Bear in mind, as I describe the elements of a new story of the people in the next chapter, that we have rugged territory to traverse to get to it from where we are today. In my description of a story of interbeing, a reunion of humanity and nature, self and other, work and play, discipline and desire, matter and spirit, man and woman, money and gift, justice and compassion, and so many other polarities seems idealistic or naive. If it arouses cynicism, impatience, or despair, then please do not push these feelings aside. They are not obstacles to be overcome. That is part of the old story of control. They are gateways to our fully inhabiting, to us and our fully inhabiting a new story and a vastly expanded power to serve change that it brings. We do not have a new story yet. Each of us is aware of some of its threads. For example, in most of the things we call alternative, holistic, or ecological today, here and there we see patterns, designs, emerging parts of the fabric, but the new mythos has not yet formed. We will abide for a time in the space between stories. It is very precious, some might say sacred time. Then we are in touch with the real. Each disaster lays bare the reality underneath our stories. The terror of a child, the grief of a mother, the honesty of not knowing why. In such moments, our dormant humanity awakens as we come to each other's as we come to each other's aid. In such moments, our dormant humanity awakens as we come to each other's aid, human to human, and learn who we are. And learn who we are. That's what keeps happening every time there is a calamity before the old beliefs, ideologies, and politics take over again. Now the calamities and contradictions are coming so fast that the story has not yet enough time to recover that old story. Such is the birth process into a new story. Woo! Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Chapter 2, I'm so happy I just read that again. As I'm reading it, I was having so many thoughts of the parts that I'm also speaking about in a book that I'm writing, and also parts that I'm wanting to share on the social media platforms. And as I say again, this book is on Charles's website. The link is below this video. You can copy and paste. You can take parts that really resonate from you. And I think you'll all agree that that is a powerhouse chapter. And let me tell you, from reading this book, every chapter is a powerhouse chapter. And that's what I love. That's why I love this book so much. So thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for listening to chapter 2, breakdown. Yeah, wow. I'm touched by that chapter again, because that's exactly where we are. We're in that process in between stories. And we know that old story of fiction just is crumbling. It's in tatters, as Charles says, not patatas, as you might say up north. May I get some patatas, mate? As in potatoes, for you people out there that don't know. So I hope you enjoyed listening to that second chapter as much as I enjoyed reading it. in my morning voice. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Remember that there are over 100 conversations that I've recorded with magnificent, beautiful people on the path in between stories that are co-creating and writing and birthing new stories, the new story of the people, the one where we are all in this together. We are all in this as community, even if you're in America, in Japan, in China, wherever you are, England, Europe, it don't matter where you are on the planet. We're talking about a global community, where we take universal responsibility, where we are all unified, where the borders drop, where the new story of the people births in local communities, and from those local communities, as we think global and we act local, as permaculture ethics. If you don't know about permaculture, explore it. And I send you love and I send you joy. We are all miracles. We are alive at a magnificent time. And our choices and the actions that we make are co-creating new stories for the next generations. Now that gets me out of bed in the morning. That excites me. That empowers me. And that makes me smile from ear to ear and laugh the almightiest belly laugh as we enjoy this gift of life and bring that joy to the world.